Welcome back to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. You know, we've talked a lot about the season itself. Let's talk about what we do after the season. And Jordan, I want to begin with you. What are some things we should do to evaluate that disc mower as we wrap up the year and before we put it in the shed?
Well, Kevin, we talked a little bit earlier in the show about tuning up your machine for those later harvests, that thinner crop. I think it's important for producers to remember that the end of the year is very different from an early season, and come springtime, it'll be a very different environment to make hay. Crops will be a lot thicker like they always are in first crop, and if you put the machine away adjusted for later season, it's not ready to go in the spring. So I like to tell folks that, you know, if you're going to put your machine away, set it up to be ready to go, because when the time comes to make hay, it's going to be amongst your tillage and your seeding application, maybe some spraying. So it's going to be a rush to make that first crop like it always is, and you need to be ready to go with that machine when that time comes.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
Let's talk about tedders and hay rakes. Is there anything we should be doing with those pieces of equipment before we put them away for the winter?
Absolutely, and I think in a producer's operation, the list of equipment ranges from tractors to disc mower conditioners to round balers, sprayers as an example, tillage pieces. The hay rake, the tedder may fall way down in terms of regular scheduled maintenance, but that doesn't mean that they're maintenance-free pieces. There's some pretty quick and easy things to assess on them when you bring them in at the end of the year. To Jordan's point, if you're working in more of a late season crop with smaller tonnages going into first cutting that following spring, you're probably not going to be set up ideally for that crop. So just remember that when you go back to the field in the springtime, you're going to need to readjust probably your rake arm angle, your windrow width on a wheel rake. Looking at things as simple as rake tines. Are there any missing? Are there any broken? If so, replace them. If there's enough missing on an individual rake wheel, maybe think about replacing that entire rake wheel assembly. Very quick, very easy to do so. I think another simple thing in terms of wheel rakes is lift the wheels up off the ground, go around and spin them by hand. Are they binding? Is there excessive free play or slop in them? If there is, address those bearings and get them replaced so that when you go to the field in the first cutting, to Jordan's point, kind of on a limited time schedule, in a rush, everything's ready to go and perform.
So I know we may be using the round baler a little later in the season than these other tools as we think about crop residue and so forth, but ultimately we're going to put that in the shed as well. And so what are some things we need to think about as we wrap up the year, no pun intended, with the round baler?
Well, one of the first things you want to do is get the compressor out, blow this thing off. Let's take a look at it. Let's inspect bearings, chains, belts, lacings, that kind of stuff on a round baler. And also, don't forget your pickup. Pickup is taking an abuse probably all year long. It's been down in the dirt doing the job for you. Let's take pickup bands off, get in there and take a look at cam follower bearings, cams, that kind of stuff. Make sure that everything's good and tight still. If it's not, now's the time to go ahead and replace that stuff. That way, as we'll find out later, that's sets you up either for next spring or sets you up to make a trade maybe.
Very good. And as we talk about this year-end kind of activity, I guess I'd be curious, what are your recommendations in terms of how we should engage our dealer in making any of these evaluations about the equipment or about repairs that we may need or what have you? George?
We have checklists that we provide dealers with many of our equipment, much beyond hay tools, certainly, that helps dealers to assess equipment, and those could be made available to customers as quick guides to kind of go down through and kind of check that equipment out, make sure that it's good to go. End of season, a lot of dealers will have parts specials, obviously, because their parts business might be slowing down at the year end as well. So it's a really good time to be able to order that long lead time part and have it on hand and be ready to go and really tune up your equipment and get a little bit more dealer support, because when you slow down, they slow down too, and everybody's a little bit better equipped to work together.
Very good. Would you guys add anything?
Sure. I mean, a lot of dealers also run a winter maintenance program. So it's an opportunity if the producer decides that doesn't have enough time maybe to go through and perform the inspection, like Jordan's talking about. A lot of dealers will work with that producer to bring the machine into their shop. They'll go through an inspection checklist, perform the regular scheduled maintenance. If there's any items that need attention, they'll review that with the customer. And at that point in time, then maybe it's a discussion too on, do we replace these parts that need attention, or is it maybe time to think about trading?
Very good. Kurt, anything else?
No, I think they did a great job.
They've covered. Fantastic. Well, I do have a few more questions for you guys in just a little bit, but I want you to remember, if you want more information on any of the topics we've discussed today, make sure you visit the website newholland.com.